Gaia's Rest had no military. That was the point. Settled as a peace experiment under the Soul Accord, it was Earth's promise to the stars. A world without weapons, borders, or even locks on doors. Its greatest achievement wasn't scientific or strategic, cultural. 27 species cohabiting, learning, growing. And then the Carnix came. It started with static on the comm relays, then silence. The last message from the colony was a fragmented visual. Children running beneath burning skies, a woman screaming in 5 languages, and a towering insectoid figure looming in the smoke, voice crackling in the galactic tongue. Witness your kindness fail you. The feed cut out. 4 hours later, Captain June Reyes stood in front of the Sol Alliance's High Council, stone-faced and still in his civilian clothes. His voice was low, calm, deliberate. No survivors confirmed. No communications. No demands. It wasn't conquest. It was extermination. A pause. No one moved. Then one counselor finally leaned forward. "And your recommendation, Captain?" June looked at the image frozen on the screen behind them. Carnick's overmind holding up a child like a specimen. He responded without blinking. "We hit back. Hard." 6 days later, a Black Ops Corvette dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Gaia system. It bore no markings. It didn't request docking codes, and it didn't ask for permission. Inside the dim-lit command deck of the Aquila, 4 people stared at the hollow blue projection of Gaia's Rest, once vibrant green, now etched in heat signatures and hive clusters. Captain June Reyes studied it in silence. He was a compact man, short, square-shouldered, weathered by more peace talks than battles. He had the posture of a diplomat, the presence of a soldier, and the eyes of someone who never fully left either world. "This is what peace gets you," he said finally, voice like gravel. "Dead children, burned forests. We end this." To his right, Arya Solana popped a piece of gum. Legs crossed atop her console, goggles pushed to her forehead. "Not disagreeing," she muttered, fingers flying across a jury-rigged interface made of spare drone parts and an old colony toaster. "But we're 4 people. They're a hive, with battleships, and venom cannons." "We're not here to fight their fleet," June said. "We're here to make them regret starting this." "Always inspiring," Arya replied, "and suicidal." June turned to the lanky man pacing behind them. Dr. Elon Mukherjee wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even military adjacent. A xenolinguist by training, he was wearing the same crumpled tunic he'd been in when June found him drinking alone in a Mars bar, watching the Gaia footage on loop. "I assume you've cracked their caste signal structure?" June asked. Elon nodded, voice hollow. "They use subsonic harmonics layered in chemical traces. Communication isn't linear, it's symphonic. But yes, I've got a working translator." "Good," June said. "We'll need it." Finally, a laugh echoed from the top deck of the observation ring. "Man, I love this part," said Dax Monroe, dropping into the command deck with a swagger only possible from someone who'd flown upside down through an asteroid belt for fun. His sleeves were rolled, his boots unzipped, and a plasma pistol dangled from a hip holster like a dare. "Right before the madness, when everyone's pretending we're not walking into hell." "Dax," June said without looking. "You're late." "Time's a construct, Cap." June looked at him now. "So's a court-martial." Dax grinned and took the pilot's chair. "Good to be back." The plan was simple. It had to be. They'd drop stealth onto Gaia's Rest using a meteor cloak. Arya would deploy modified terraforming drones to map and sabotage the hive's infrastructure. Elon would intercept and translate the Karnak's internal signals, and Dax would improvise, whatever insanity was required when things inevitably went sideways. And June would make the call, the one no one else could. The Aquila drifted silently past Gaia's moon, engines dead, cloaked in radiation scatter. Colony came into view like a wound, smoke spiraling from bioharvest towers, trees twisted into spires, the rivers red with sediment, and something else. June stared. He had seen war. He had ended them. But this wasn't war. This was desecration. His fingers flexed against the railing, knuckles pale. "Patch me into Council Command," he said. Arya raised an eyebrow. "We're technically rogue. Doesn't mean I won't leave them a message." A crackle, then the comms link opened. "Sol Council," June said. "This is Reyes, Operation Echo Hammer. We've arrived at Gaia's Rest." Silence on the other end. This colony was founded as a symbol. Peace without pretense, culture without weapons. That was the dream. He paused just long enough. But a dream doesn't survive without teeth, and Earth has them. We don't need your authorization. We don't need your support. We only need you to remember this moment. He cut the channel. In the forward cargo bay, Arya pulled a tarp off her drone array. Sleek silver bodies, retrofitted with plasma cutters, mapping sensors, and one that just had a glowing red smiley face painted on it. "Please tell me we're naming them," Dax said. "We're not," he pointed. "That one's Doug." Arya sighed. "Fine. When Doug dies, you write the eulogy." Ilan stood at the hatch, holding a handheld translator, pulsing with alien tones. "They've reinforced their hive mind frequencies," he said softly. "But they're not expecting infiltration. They think we're scared." Jin joined them, eyes scanning the planet below. "Good," he said. "Let's surprise them." The bay doors opened with a hiss. For a moment, no one moved. Then Jun said, "Drop the sky." And the hammer fell. The descent was silent. Not because of stealth systems, though Arya's hacked grav gliders were doing their job, but because none of them felt like speaking. Gaia's Rest passed beneath them in streaks of ash and ruin. The bright green forests, once shown in every interstellar tourism vid, were now charred silhouettes. Monument stones, melted, community domes, hollowed out like skulls. Dax exhaled slowly through his helmet mic. "Looks like a firestorm got into a poetry contest and won." June's reply was curt. "Keep chatter minimal. We're in it now." They landed just beyond the remains of Harmony Square, the symbolic center of the colony, where children had painted murals with alien visitors, and interspecies musicians once performed beneath artificial auroras. Now it was quiet. Too quiet. And that's what worried Arya. "Thermal readings aren't lining up," she muttered, crouched beside a drone interface. "There's power signatures, but no patrols, no sentries. Nothing's moving, and that's not like the Karniks." "They're overconfident," Ellen said, eyes scanning the horizon. "They've won, in their mind. They don't expect resistance from ghosts." June stepped forward, motioning them to fan out. "Good," he said. "Ghosts don't announce themselves." The first objective was a communications relay buried beneath the old hydroponic towers, now overtaken by twisted vines that pulsed faintly with a sick green biolight. Arya crouched by the tower's spine, soldering a bypass node to a cracked data feed. Her hands moved fast, precise. "Drone grids up in 60 seconds. Range will be limited. We're not dealing with clean lines anymore." June stood watch nearby, rifle lowered, but ready. "Then we move in chunks. Elan, your translator ready?" Elan tapped a small device clipped to his chest. It glowed briefly in response. "I've preloaded common Karnix cast signals, but we'll need live samples to fine-tune." "I'll get you one," Dax called from above, balanced impossibly on a crumbled sculpture of Gaia herself. 3 o'clock, single drone, recon type, walking like it's out for coffee. "I don't think they drink coffee," Arya said. "That's why we win," Dax grinned. In a blur, he leapt from his perch, landing behind the drone in a slide. A quick twist, an electrical pulse from his wrist blade, then silence. "Got your symphony box, Doc?" Elan knelt beside the disabled drone, scanning its pheromone emitters. A string of unreadable alien notation flickered across his tablet. His brow furrowed. "Strange. It's broadcasting disharmony." Jun stepped in. "Explain." "It's dissonant. Their signal's off-key, like a broken instrument trying to scream." "You're telling me their hive is fractured?" "Possibly." Ellen stood, expression darkening. Or worse, it's evolving. 30 minutes later, Arya's drone swarm came online, buzzing low like a mechanical hornet cloud. Dax stood proudly beside them. All right, Doug, Tanya, Blinky, and Murderkite, make us proud. Murderkite? Arya deadpanned. I let the software name that one, he shrugged. Pretty sure it's haunted. The drones scattered across the wreckage, skimming over scorched fields and broken homes. Within moments, a 3D map flickered to life in Arya's wrist display. Hive node identified, she said, deep under what used to be the education center. They're using the geothermal core for energy, structural reinforcement, and... She paused. Bioprocessing. Ellen blanched. Processing what? A beat. Colonists, she said. They're being kept alive. Barely. June's jaw tightened. Why? Elan's fingers danced across his translator. The Karniks are logical. They've never understood empathy. They're using the survivors as emotional bait for us. They want a reaction, June said flatly. They want to learn how to weaponize our grief. Dax spat. Guess it's time we taught them what rage looks like, too. The approach to the hive node was through what used to be a botanical garden. It was a twisted nightmare now, roots fused with metal, plant life repurposed into hive architecture. Bioluminescent fungi pulsed with a heartbeat not their own. As they moved in, Arya triggered the heat dispersion systems, blending their body temperatures with the surrounding decay. Elan adjusted his translator, syncing to the local hive signal. They're disorganized, he whispered. The overmind is distracted, like it's fighting itself. June raised his hand, motioning to halt. Ahead, two Karnik's guardians skittered into view, towering insectoids with blade limbs and blank silver eyes. The team froze. Then Dax tapped something on his forearm. A low burst of ancient earth jazz crackled out of the translator. Saxophone. Mellow, unpredictable. The Karniks twitched, visibly confused. You're distracting them with Miles Davis? Arya hissed. They don't know how to handle improvisation, Dax whispered. Confuses the hive signal hierarchy. June didn't smile, but something flickered behind his eyes. Use it. Arya tossed a drone forward. Murderkite screeched, discharged a flashbang, and the team sprinted. In seconds, they were inside the hive. It was colder than expected, and wet. The walls throbbed, alive with respiration and mucus-coated tubing. At the center of the chamber, the colonists, pinned in biomatter, breathing but unconscious. And above them, connected by spines of glistening bone and nerve, hovered the Overmind. Its voice tore through their minds, not ears. You fear loss. We study it. You grieve. We consume. Jun stepped forward, gun lowered. No, he said quietly. You understand nothing. Behind him, Arya deployed a compact device. It pulsed once, sending a viral surge through the hive's nervous system. The Overmind convulsed, shrieked, staggered. Elan tuned the translator higher, blasting disharmonic noise through every synapse in the chamber. The colonists stirred. Dax fired first, right between the Overmind's eyes. What followed wasn't a battle. It was an unraveling. 10 minutes later, the team stood over the body of the fallen Overmind, breathless and bruised. June touched his comm. Phase 1 complete. Survivors secured. Hive node neutralized. Arya leaned against a support beam, exhausted. Phase 2? June stared at the shattered remains. We send a message. They buried the Overmind in its own hive. Not with ceremony, just a collapse. Arya rerouted the geothermal tunnels beneath the hive core, triggered a controlled melt, and watched the spire fold into itself like a dying insect. Poetic, Dax muttered, wiping blood and biogel from his visor. Thermodynamically efficient, Arya corrected. But sure, let's call it a haiku. The colonists, what was left of them, were stable. Elin had administered stim patches and translated vital signs into rough approximations of human medical norms. One of the kids, barely 6 years old, had clung to his wrist and wouldn't let go. They were using her dreams, he whispered to June, eyes wet. Her dreams, Captain, harvesting neural signals to try and synthesize empathy patterns. June didn't reply. He just knelt and handed the girl a ration bar. She took it with trembling fingers and nodded once, like she understood more than she should. Back aboard the Aquila, they planned the next move. Here's what we know, Jun began, pointing to a star chart now crawling with red-coated nodes. Gaia's Rest wasn't an isolated attack. It was a test. Karnak's fleets are mobilizing toward at least 9 other colonies. If they break Earth's perimeter, we lose everything, Arya finished. Dax leaned over the projection, lips twisted. So how do we stop a war before it begins? We start one, Jun said simply. A false one. He turned to Elin. We still have the Overmind's neural signature? Elin nodded slowly. You want to impersonate their leadership? I want to fracture their hive. What followed was the kind of madness only humans could think up. Elin reconstructed the Overmind's command protocols. Layered frequencies, biological markers, and pheromonal authority signals into a ghost code. Arya embedded it into a modified terraforming beacon, and Dax mounted that beacon onto the nose of a stolen Karnak's atmospheric drone. You sure this'll trick them? Dax asked, strapping in. June offered the smallest of nods. We're not impersonating their god. We're planting a heretic. The drone launched like a spear across the sky, broadcasting a corrupted, impossible command. The flesh rebels. The hive must fracture. Across Gaia's Rest, chaos erupted. Karnak's patrols began turning on each other. The hive's soldiers, unable to reconcile conflicting orders, splintered into shrieking confusion. Biotowers fell silent. A signal war had begun, and Earth had started it with a lie. Dax swooped Buppo in the stolen drone, cackling into his mic. They're chasing their own tails down here. One of the brutes just punched a tree. Arya chimed in from the Aquila. I'm rerouting hive relay control to our systems. We've got 2 hours max before they realize they're being puppeteered. June's voice cut through. Then we finish this. The plan. Collapse the geothermal mantle beneath Gaia's crust, triggering a localized tectonic rupture. Not enough to destroy the planet, but enough to bury every Karnak structure in 5 square kilometers of lava, ash, and regret. Only humans could weaponize a planetary garden into a firebomb. Arya coordinated the core detonation arrays from orbit, fingers flying across half-broken consoles. Sweat beaded on her temple. Detonation sequence primed, 30-minute countdown. Elan stood beside her, eyes on the remaining survivors they'd evacuated to a safe ridge overlooking the hive. The young girl clutched a tattered blanket, watching the horizon with unblinking focus. She said the trees still remember the music, Ellen murmured. June entered the bay, armor scuffed and silent. And soon, he said, the trees will sing fire. Down on the planet. Dax stayed behind, not because he had to, because he wanted to. He rigged the stolen Karnak's drone with a final payload, the same beacon that had fractured the hive, but this time it would broadcast a farewell song. As the countdown ticked, he sat cross-legged beside it, staring at the twin moons above. Doug would have liked this, he whispered. The drone blinked red, as if in agreement. At T-minus 2 minutes, Dax stood, snapped a salute to the sky, and whispered, Drop it. From orbit, Gaia's Rest bloomed. Not green, not blue, but molten gold. The geothermal rupture tore through the crust like a knife through silk. A column of flame erupted where the hive once stood, high enough to kiss the stratosphere. The ash cloud twisted into a spiral, then scattered as if the planet itself was exhaling. Back on the Aquila, silence reigned. Then Arya let out a breath. Target eliminated. June said nothing. Just watched the fire. The next day, a message went out from the Aquila, encoded in Karnak's protocol, then broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. You touched our peaceful world. You turned harmony into ashes, and Earth responded not with fury, but precision. We are not conquerors, but we remember, and we build hammers from what you break. Back on Gaia's Rest, survivors began to rebuild. Not everything could be restored. Some losses would never come back. But children played again, this time near pools of cooled obsidian, shaped like craters where monsters once ruled. The young girl painted on a broken wall, colors bright, patterns joyful. June walked alone for a while, watched, listened. Beside him, Elin joined quietly. She said the stars sang last night. June looked up. Maybe they did. The flame scars cooled, but the story burned on. 3 weeks after the strike, Gaia's Rest was declared uninhabitable by every major interstellar body. Too unstable, too damaged, too symbolic. Earth refused. They sent builders, not soldiers, terraformers, not tanks, botanists, artists, dreamers, survivors. The colony that once stood for peace now stood for defiance and for memory. At the edge of the new settlement, built among lava rock gardens and fresh sprouting groves, a monument was raised. Carved from the cooled bones of the hive itself, it bore no weapons, no names. Only a single human phrase etched in a dozen languages. Kindness is not weakness. June Reyes stood before it, uniform jacket unzipped, weathered hands behind his back. He hadn't worn a medal. He never would. Behind him, the laughter of children filled the air. A girl with paint-stained fingers ran past, chasing a drone Arya had modified into a floating projector of butterflies. Doug Jr., the kids called it. June allowed himself the shadow of a smile. Didn't think you'd stay, Ellen said, walking up beside him. June nodded toward the field. Didn't think I could leave? Ellen looked up. 2 moons hung above the horizon, casting soft light across the rebuilt settlement. The same stars that had watched it burn now watched it rise. I've been thinking about the Karniks, Ellen said. Why they targeted this world first. Why peace threatened them more than weapons ever could. June didn't respond, so Elon kept going. They didn't just want territory. They wanted to disprove us, to show the galaxy that peace without force was naive. He gestured around them, and we showed them the opposite. That peace, when broken, doesn't vanish. It fights back, and then it rebuilds. June turned, finally, and met Elon's gaze. They thought this was our softest world, he said. They were wrong. It was our most human. Elsewhere on Gaia's Rest, Arya sat cross-legged inside what remained of the old power core. Now it was a greenhouse. Tubes once filled with biofuel now carried water. The same pipes that pumped hive fluid now held nutrient mist for seedlings. She adjusted a solar filter and muttered to the sapling, growing in a suspended cradle. You're not just a tree. You're proof. Dax's voice crackled from her comm. You talking to plants again? Better than talking to you. Harsh. I'm hurt. Emotionally. You're a meat grenade with a jetpack. You don't have emotions. Pause. Fair. She smirked just a little. I planted one of your terrible drone parts in the soil. Think it'll grow into a sarcasm tree? If it does, name it after me. It'll probably explode. Still counts. Dax Monroe never left either. Not officially. His ship was always ready. His engines always warmed. His excuses always dramatic. But he stayed. Built a bar on the edge of the crater. Called it the drop zone. Wood from burned-out colony domes. Metal from the hive's shattered towers. The sign above the door flickered between languages and had exactly one rule beneath it. No overminds, no politics, no charging your drones at the bar. It became a strange kind of sanctuary. Locals came for stories. Off-worlders came for drinks. Soldiers came to be left alone. And sometimes, after hours, Dax would sit behind the bar and pour 2 glasses. One for himself, one for Doug. He never explained that to anyone. No one asked. Back on Earth, the galaxy shifted. The Karniks didn't return. They didn't dare. Their hive mind, once vast and synchronized, now moved more carefully, slowly. Messages filtered through confused ranks. Some subfactions even began experimenting with independent thought. And from the shadows, other species took note. Species that had watched humans from afar, feared them, mocked them, pitied them. Now they watched Gaia's rest and whispered, Earth does not strike first, but it does strike last. The council wanted to award Jun Reyes the Solar Cross. He declined. Instead, he sent a message. You asked for a hammer. I gave you one. Not because Earth is cruel, but because cruelty challenged our compassion. Gaia's rest was not a failure of peace. It was proof. We still believe in harmony. We still believe in kindness. But never again will we let anyone mistake that for weakness. And 1 year later, on the anniversary of the strike, the survivors of Gaia's rest gathered beneath the stars. They planted a new forest, one tree for every lost name. No speeches, just silence and wind. June stood among them, older now, softer, maybe, or simply tired. A girl tugged his hand, the same one they'd rescued from the hive. She pointed up. Is it true? She asked. Did the stars really sing? June followed her gaze. The night sky shimmered, two auroras twisting where the hive's atmospheric beacon had once pulsed. Maybe, he said. Maybe they were just waiting for us to listen. And far above, where no Karniks dared to fly, the signal Earth left behind still drifted in deep space. A simple message, looping endlessly in a language any species could understand. We build, we dream, we defend. And if you take our peace, we bring the hammer.